Riverside Prostitute Killer. A 70-year-old convicted serial killer from Lake Elsinore has confessed to another slaying in Southern California, putting an end to a decades-old cold case, authorities announced Tuesday. William Lester Suff has admitted killing the 19-year-old Kathy Small in 1986, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Lieutenant Tricia Thomas said at a news conference. Suff also admitted to other killings in Riverside County, but authorities did not immediately provide details on those cases. He is currently on death row in San Quentin. According to authorities, Suff's killings go back to the 1970s and 1980s, when Los Angeles was known as the serial killer capital of America. In 1974, he was convicted in Texas of killing his 2-month-old daughter and was sentenced to 70 years. But in 1984, he was paroled to California, Thomas said. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for future interesting videos. On February 22, 1986, South Pasadena police responded to a report of a woman lying in the road on Bank Street, Thomas said. The woman was found wearing a nightgown and was unresponsive with multiple stab wounds. She was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy determined she was stabbed and strangled to death. 3 days later, detectives got a call from a Lake Elsinore resident who saw a newspaper article about the homicide and was worried the woman was his roommate, according to authorities. The caller later identified the victim as 19-year-old Kathy Small, a sex worker who had been living with him in his house for a few months. The man told detectives that Small left the house on February 21 and told him that a man named Bill was picking her up and giving her $50 to drive with him to LA, Thomas said. Detectives followed up on several leads throughout the decades, but never solved the case. Authorities later discovered that a sexual assault kit from the case and Small's clothing were never tested for DNA. On August 20, 2020, DNA analysis linked the case to 2 males. One of them was Suff. When questioned by detectives in 2022, Suff said he was working at a computer repair shop and living in Riverside County in 1986. One day, Small went into the repair shop and gave him her home phone number. He called her and asked if she would go with him to see his boss in Pasadena. When they arrived at the location on Bank Street, the two got into an argument and Suff became enraged when she knocked the glasses off his face, Thomas said. Suff retrieved a knife from his car and stabbed her multiple times in the chest. He then pushed her into the street and drove away. We believe we're bringing a sense of long overdue justice and closure to the victim and her family, Lake County Sheriff Robert Luna said at Tuesday's press conference. Small had 2 young children and was on her way to getting her life back on track when she was killed, according to a statement from Small's younger sister that Thomas read at the news conference. She was a loving mother and a good daughter, the statement said. She had a big heart and would do anything for anyone. Suff would remain free until he was arrested during a routine traffic stop in 1992 and ultimately confessed to a dozen other murders in Riverside County between 1989 and 1991 and was sentenced to death. Suff is not expected to be put on trial for Small's killing because he is already on death row, authorities said. Sign up for Essential California for news, features and recommendations from the LA Times and beyond in your inbox 6 days a week. Serial killer confesses to 1986 murder of teen mom in Southern California. A serial killer convicted of the murders of 12 women has confessed to the cold case murder of a 19-year-old mother in Southern California in 1986. Kathy Small, 19, was found stabbed to death on a street in South Pasadena in February 1986, but her case went unsolved for nearly 4 decades. We believe we're bringing a sense of long overdue justice and closure to the victim and her family, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said in a press conference this week. William Lester Suff, known as the Lake Elsinore Killer, And the Riverside Prostitute Killer admitted in 2022 to murdering Small after his DNA was found on her clothing, saying she enraged him by knocking his glasses off his face during a fight, Lieutenant Patricia Thomas said during Tuesday's briefing. A serial killer convicted for the murders of 12 women confessed to the cold case murder of a 19-year-old mother in Southern California in 1986. Suff told investigators Small had first met him at a computer repair shop where he worked and agreed to drive with him from Lake Elsinore in South Pasadena for $50. After he stabbed her repeatedly in the passenger seat of his car, he admitted to tossing her body on the sidewalk and driving away, Thomas said. Suff, who is on death row at San Quentin in California, also admitted to other unsolved cold case murders in Riverside County, Thomas said, but didn't identify the victims. Investigators realized DNA collected from the crime hadn't been tested. And when it was, Suff's DNA was found on her clothing. Suff began killing in the 1970s and was convicted in the death of his 2-month-old daughter in Texas in 1974 and sentenced to 70 years. But he was paroled in 1984 and moved back to California. Photos of Kathy Small with her children. Kathy Small, 19, was a mother of 2 young children when she was killed. Luna said Suff's confession underscores the power of modern forensic science. 2. The amazing relentless work by our Los Angeles Homicide Bureau detectives, which I keep on saying are the best in the country at what they do. And then the collaboration and partnership between agencies. Amongst everything else we're talking about today, you always got to remember when we're talking about something as significant as this, we're talking about a victim who lost her life and the family who will never forget that. And I know we never forget that, and that's what makes the teamwork here so amazing. Thomas also read a letter written by Small's younger sister, who was 10 at the time of her murder, but couldn't be at the news conference because she lives out of state. My sister Kathy Small was not a statistic, she wrote. She was a protective big sister, a loving mother, and a good daughter. Small's sister said the 19-year-old taught her how to swim, ride a bike, and play cards. Whenever I stayed with my big sister, she took me to church, she continued. Kathy was talented, but her life was cut short before she could even begin to make her own dreams come true. She added that Small, who was working as a sex worker at the time of her murder, was trying to get sober and had stopped using drugs. But before she could take another step forward, her life was ended. She added that she is forever indebted to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for making sure the memory of my sister Kathy Small stayed alive despite her senseless murder more than 35 years ago in February of 1986. Homicide detectives recovered all the evidence that had been collected since 1986 regarding Small's killing and transported it to the sheriff's crime lab in Los Angeles, where they discovered that none of the evidence, including Small's clothing and the sexual assault kit, had ever been tested for DNA. There were 2 sets of DNA found on Small's clothing. In a twist, neither sample matched the man who had recently died on Bank Street. But one was a match for William Lester Suff, a convicted serial killer known as the Riverside Prostitute Killer. If you enjoyed from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content. Thanks for watching.